Thank you very much for joining us on the Voice of Job Seekers Live. It is a business and leadership channel that I'm developing, and hopefully, you'll be able to enjoy this concept and also enjoy this content that we're bringing to you that's going to be really special. I want to bring with you or bring with me today Magalie Rene. Her company is the Workplace Catalyst, and she is developing compassionate and empathetic leaders. And hopefully, a lot of you will get a lot out of this because a lot of you are contemplating building a business and want to start off on the right foot. So, I want to greet Magalie as she's recently been on Good Morning America, Glassdoor, Forbes, those kind of channels. So, hopefully, you'll enjoy this content because this is a little bit different and this might be anti. Um, testosterone, sort of, kind of, in a way, though it shouldn't be, but for a lot of people, it might be. Thank you very much, Magalie, for joining me today.
Hello, thank you for having me. It's so good to be here.
Yes, thank you. Um, we were talking before, and the reason why you resonated with me personally, because I'm sort of, my DNA runs along the compassionate empathy line, and I can remember uh, getting reamed by a couple of bosses throughout time that I was compassionate and empathetic. And I think there's a lot of us out there that leave that because that's our gift. It's not something that's considered a weakness, at least for those who at least understand leadership. But for a lot of people, they are very much anti. Compassion and anti empathy. Maybe you might have some insight to why that is or why people tend to leave that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. So the kind of leadership that we need now that's gotten us to this point really isn't going to get us where we're going. It isn't the type of
Mhm.
leadership that's effective
Mhm.
considering how many circumstances, right? External circumstances, stresses, challenges we're dealing with in this moment in time. the
Mhm.
the pandemic, right? Another racial awakening, all of the different stressors, returning to work in this kind of climate, vaccinations, anti-vaccinations. I think we need compassion. We need compassion in leadership. And the reason why it's been a challenge, I think, up to now to have people really accept that and embrace that is because it was looked at as a weakness,
Mhm.
right? If you're vulnerable, if you're connecting to how people feel, if you care, then you're not going to meet your deliverables. Then you're coddling, then you're enabling, you're weak, you're
Mhm.
fragile, right? So I
Mhm.
think that that's been the past thinking, and perhaps some people still haven't quite gotten on board because they're afraid that anything that is softer than the usual hard line leadership is going to lead to a lack of accomplishment and reaching your goals.
Yeah, many employers are asking people to come back into the office, and um, you know, I think that's one of the things that people ultimately listen are missing. Although many people probably can't put their finger on why there are other circumstances than other than obvious, other than salary or working conditions that that employers are not willing to try to understand and listen with empathy and deploy when they see appropriate or when it's appropriate.
Well, I mean, I think that some people are. So I'm noticing that there are a lot of different ways and approaches to returning to work. Some
Hmm.
employers are making it mandatory to be back in the office. Some employers are being open and are creating a hybrid environment where you can be home, you can be in the office, kind of do both. And I think it depends on the field. And I do think that you have that other group of individuals and of companies who are old school and they are just moving forward very slowly. There are a lot of people, right, in general, and then of course people make up organizations. So then you've got organizations and companies that are just they're like dinosaurs. They don't understand that there's a remote revolution. This is a new time in our society, and there are ways now that we can work together and have global reach and impact, and it doesn't require we be physically in the office.
Yeah, I really believe that there are some good signs that people who are looking for work, at least, can expect from a leader or people that they come in contact with a company that might have this? Are there specific signs? Let's say somebody is looking for a compassionate leader to either partner with or collaborate with or even work for.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we do at Workplace Catalyst, my company, is that we really work with mission-driven organizations and leaders, and we
Hmm.
support them in bridging compassionate leadership, well-being, and belonging. So think of those three areas as they must work together. So when you're looking into either jumping into a new organization or collaborating with other, I don't know, leaders or influencers or anyone, right?
Hmm.
Partnering with them in any capacity. And this goes for personal or professional. You want
Right.
to be thinking about, do they care about your well-being? Are they mindful of their own well-being? Do they come from understanding? Are they coming from curiosity? Or are they judgmental, coming from judgment? Right? These are
Hmm.
the traits: understanding, empathy, listening. Do they want to hear what you have to say? What kinds of causes might they be passionate about? What kind of interests do they have? Are they thinking about me, this company, this company, this company, this initiative? Are they also linking and thinking about how what they do in any capacity, what you're going to do together, how that's going to impact the world, how that's going to impact other people? So I think those are some of the things we can look at. Do they care about others? Are they listening? Are they understanding? Do they care? And are they interested in what you have to bring to the table and what you have to share?
Yeah, most people are going to have to look a little bit deeper than a mission statement and maybe a couple of statements that are on a website in order to really find out what the true core of that company is and do they have those particular values.
Absolutely. And it's not only what they're writing and what they're saying, it's also thinking about looking at the makeup of the company. How
Hmm.
many, what do the demographics look like? How many people of color? What are they doing when it is Pride Month, right? What are they doing throughout the year to support people, marginalized groups, right? So these are
Hmm.
the kinds of questions we need to start asking ourselves. It's not just about what statements they're putting out there. It's also, what does the company stand for? And what do you see historically over time? How have they been engaging around racial inequity, right? These are the kinds of conversations we want to be having.
Yeah, and I would even add, are the leaders involved in that conversation, and are they catalysts for those conversations? Because it's
Totally.
not
Check them
it's
out
not
on LinkedIn, right? And see
right.
what they're into.
Well, it's not only just important to just to lend on the back end, but to start those conversations. And sometimes, even when it's considered controversial in the industry that they're in, it shouldn't be. But unfortunately, that is the space that we live in right now. Where if somebody is a little bit compassionate, somebody's empathetic, or if a company deploys those, like let's say Ben and Jerry's, who is deeply involved in being compassionate, being empathetic, and are very vocal and somewhat bold about it. You would have to, it's almost be attracted to those kind of characteristics than the ones that are profiting, say they'll advance your career. Because really, if you're being those things, you'll attract other people that will be like-minded, and you'll advance in those areas.
That's true. I also think that there's a spectrum, right? So not
Mhm.
everybody's going to be. Ben and Jerry's isn't just compassionate, they're also progressive. So they're
Yes.
very vocal politically. And
Hmm.
I don't necessarily know that every company has to be as politically active and and vocal. Different organizations in different industries are going to work different ways. So we got to think about, there is a spectrum. However,
Yeah.
you can, even if a company or an organization isn't as progressive, you can still be thinking about, what are their leaders interested in? What are they talking about? What are some of the topics that they have their thought leaders are involved in sharing and discussing? And I think you can find that out by doing a deeper dive on the leadership. I totally agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Great point. They're triggers as well for those who work in organizations and those who want to work or build an organization where they may not know exactly what they are feeling, but it runs along the line because of the lack of compassion and empathy. I think for me, what was a trigger, well, I couldn't figure out what it was, but I was being told something that was totally against what was in nature for me, that it is better for me to lead with beating my chest than to, you know what I mean, as
Toxic.
far as
I'm hearing like
doing
toxic
it together.
masculinity, right?
It,
Like
well,
being
that's the kind
very,
of thing. Well,
yeah.
my age group, unfortunately, has been exposed to more of that than having the compassion, empathetic part of it. So, for I know there are people who've been triggered by that. What are some of the common ones that you've run across that where it causes people to hold back and to doubt themselves and to maybe even somewhat self sabotage their efforts if they aspire to those things?
Yeah, so I often think about everything is either coming from love or fear. So where are we operating from? When we're operating from love, then we are expansive, we're energized, we're excited about what we're creating. When we're operating from fear, that really is where you have these ideas and feelings of I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, I've got to show up a certain way to impress other people, right? I've got to fall in line with what the status quo is. So what if it feels, if compassion or empathy or speaking up feels uncomfortable, maybe that's because you want to toe the line. You want to
Hmm.
fit in with whatever that environment is. Those are the characteristics that come from fear, being afraid to show up as our authentic selves. So
Hmm.
I often say we've got to redefine and redesign our relationship with fear. So
Hmm.
using fear instead of allowing it to keep you constricted and small and fitting in a box, right? Use the fear as a catalyst to do something different, to step outside of your comfort zone and get excited about being uncomfortable, get excited about being afraid, because that means it's an opportunity for your next level, right? For your
Hmm.
next level of leadership. And it is going to require that you do something different, that you do something new, that you stretch out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I think a lot of people aren't particularly afraid of conflict with others. That is conflict with what they grew up with, and perhaps they even think of their grandmothers, their mothers, their fathers, the things that were handed down to them were completely against what we are talking about. So there's that internal conflict with the ghost, so to speak. You
Yeah,
know
I
what I
think
mean?
that's powerful. I'm hearing like like mastering yourself and understanding your trigger points. Like what is it that might be influencing you and why might you be triggered in a situation? Is that what you mean, Mark?
Yes, and I think it's not even with coworkers or with your boss or with people collaborating business partners. It could be your past, the things that you were told as a man coming up, or what your mother had passed down. Because a lot of these attributes are not just masculine; they're also passed by women because that's how they grew up, and they're just passing it on to you because they think that's the way a man's supposed to be. That there's that conflict, not so much with the external, it's
It's the
deeply internal.
internal.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the internal. So so we're doing work with a global advertising agency, and we're working specifically on Black leaders and Black talent, and
Hmm.
talking to them, connecting the dots, right, between their leadership styles and history and their backgrounds and the way that we come up is really everything you're talking about. And
Hmm.
really, when it comes to compassionate leadership, you really can't show up fully in your leadership if you're not aware of your triggers and
Hmm.
aware of what you've been through and how that may be influencing the way you engage with other people. So it is really internal. And from
Hmm.
there, then it kind of goes external. And there are a lot of negative messages, right? As people of color that
Sure.
we have, as Black people that we have taken in. And that is from the external, but a lot of times that's internalized.
Hmm.
So one of the things I practice so deeply is take nothing personally, because it's never about me. So the way someone is reacting and acting has nothing to do with me. How they even see me is more a reflection on who they are, what
Hmm.
they believe, and what triggers they're having,
Right.
more than it is about who I am or how I'm showing up. So that's one of the key things, is just recognizing that.
Hmm.
Notice your triggers. Notice what you believed and why it has you so angry. Get to the
Hmm.
bottom of it before you're reacting. And also remember that people's opinions of you and the way that they show up, even in their triggers, has nothing to do with you. And that will allow you to get to that baseline of like neutrality, where you calm yourself down, and then you can think more clearly and take action that's effective rather than reactive.
Yeah. The other half of the internal conflict is just that they would also have to reconcile who their past relationships who've fed them that information, who they really were. And I think that's even harder to accept, the fact that they are are not as compassionate, they're not as empathetic, and they see the damage that was done, but they also have to reconcile that's the kind of damage that their past relationships, whether it's been family or business partners, those particular ghosts, how they were. And that's something that they can't change, except they're afraid to change the narrative around those people that fed them that kind of those traits. You understand
Mark,
what I
I
mean?
love it. You're going so deep. We're
I
going
know.
deep this morning. Yes,
Yeah.
indeed. 100%. I think we've got to look. I always say we're always practicing something. We're always practicing something. So, what are the traits? What are the behaviors that have gotten us this far, right?
Hmm.
What have you been taught? By whom? What did their life look like? How did that person, your grandmother, your mother, your granddad, your dad, your aunts, uncles, whoever it is, or maybe it's a past boss, what kind of relationships did they have? When you look at their life, were they
Hmm.
happy? Was
Yeah.
it creating, was what they taught you, was that
Hmm.
creating love for them in their life,
Yeah.
right? Positivity, or was
Yeah.
it exhausting, depleting, negative? I had a boss once, and when I would tell people, when I first started at a particular job, I would tell people, "Oh, I work for so and so." They, across the board, doesn't matter what department, division they were in, they'd go, "I'm so sorry.
Hmm.
How has it been?
Hmm.
I know that must be difficult." Like, if that's the kind of response that this person is getting, maybe somebody in your past that has taught you or was a mentor. I don't know. I mean, I'm making up all kinds of scenarios here.
Right.
But if that's the kind of response they're getting, then maybe you need to rethink what you've been taught and reassess how you're going to show up.
Or they will refuse to comment at all because they're also conflicted between what they were taught as to what May is supposed to be and what they're trying to do outside of that. So instead of dealing with that conflict, that's just one more to add. They rather not deal with that at all.
Yeah, agreed.
So yeah. So for you, and for leaders particular, um, is there one particular teachable moment that people probably can take away from having the right kind of dialogue? Let's say that they do come, they're able to reconcile some of the ghosts from the past. So let's call it that,
Okay.
that they're able to go, but they're not sure what is the first step to take, or the first couple of steps to take. What would you recommend?
I would recommend personal development of any sort. So that can be through particular programs that you might take. It might be through reading certain books. There are two books that really had an impact on me, and those are great ways and places to start. One is called "You Can Heal Your Life," and it's
Hmm.
by Louise Hay, who's a woman who did personal development and self-help since the 80s, right?
Hmm.
And she's no longer alive, but her book is really transcendent. It's really supported me. Another one is The Four Agreements, which is an excellent, excellent, excellent book. I think we've got to be focused on self-mastery, because you
Hmm.
cannot support others, show up in your utmost power at the highest levels of the way you're engaging in your leadership. You can't show up that way if you haven't gotten good with you. If you haven't taken the time to really do the deep work to look at what has influenced who you've become and how you engage out there in the world, you're not going to
Mhm.
be able to be at the highest level to really elevate other people and to make a difference and an impact in the world. So start with you would be the first piece of advice. And then the next is, this is a simple one, but it's also it blows people's minds because it's so simple. You ready for it,
Mhm.
Mark?
I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready.
All right. It's use your breath. There is so much power in the breath. We
Mhm.
have a power to pause at any moment and recalibrate ourselves. And all we need to
Mhm.
do is take a significantly deep, full breath in, hold it at the top for a count of 4 to 7, and then slowly let it out. You do that 3 times, it resets it scientifically resets you, right?
Mhm.
Recalibrates you. You're going to feel completely different and you can show up in a new moment because every moment is a new moment, a new opportunity to show up in your most elevated and your best light.
Oh, that's good advice, and I believe there'll be people practicing that as we speak, and
I
they'll
hope
hear this.
so. Take that deep breath in. So much
Yeah.
power in
Yes. Anything you'd like to add before I send you off into the, internet abyss?
Sure, the abyss. I love it. Sure, sure. You can definitely find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram. It's Magalie_Rene. And please do jump into my website and sign up for our newsletter, the Get Conscious newsletter. It's amazing. We have great content that we share. So it's MAGALIERENE.com. And I can't wait to engage with you on the interwebs.
Oh, well, right here, I have it right here on, where people can see it. It's been up for the last 15 minutes, so they've had plenty
Oh,
of time to
beautiful.
write
Great,
up. I
great.
want to be sure to get that in. Thank you so much for your time and your great energy. I love it.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was wonderful to be here with you. I'm glad we got to. This is as in person as it gets right now. So thank you so
Right,
much.
right, and, somebody had a comment, Elaine, who, practically joins me on everything that I do here lately. She said, "Love the idea of taking a breath will help prevent you from saying something you might otherwise regret." That is
Absolutely.
a fact. Absolutely, and, I don't know how many times I've had to breathe where people think it might be a little strange that they do so, but it may feel that way socially, but it's for you, it's not for anybody else.
Yep.
So, great, thank you, and, I'm gonna let you go, and I'm gonna keep talking for a hot second, so thank you so much for
Beautiful.
joining me.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mark. It was great to
Alright,
be here. Bye, everyone.
alright, thank you. And for the rest of you, thank you very much for joining me on the Voice of Job Seekers Live. This is something new I'm trying, sending to a bunch of folks on my timelines. And also, the YouTube channel will be up. It will be just look for me. And you'll find the YouTube channel, and you'll be able to find this interview at least by this afternoon on YouTube. But otherwise, if you need to replay, you can go to any of my LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook profiles. I just want to give you an update a little bit about what was happening for the podcast. So, you're probably noticing that the new episodes have arrived. And last week we had Scott Beeson on, my longtime friend, and talking about his latest book. And we've got a bunch of folks coming up for the podcast this year. I've already recorded most of the episodes. I have one I have not recorded, and that's going to be a very special episode. I'm going to hit you up on that. But be sure that you also hit up thevoiceofjobseekers.com for all things the Voice of Job Seekers. The Voice of Job Seekers Live, you'll be able to find on my timelines. The podcast, of course, you'll be able to find on any podcast directory. Did you know that it's on Audible? I don't know if you knew that. But anyway, you're going to also find that the series this fall is longer than normal. You're going to find that there's an hour's worth of content for the podcast. That's going to include the interviews that I've done already, and then some of the past shows and maybe a few of the present. of the live streams that I do. And then you'll find clips there of the Modern Job Search Checklist, which comes out every Friday at 1 p.m. And every Wednesday, it's hashtag Job Seeker Nation, and that's along with Jack Kelly. You'll find excerpts from those shows along with those guests and that panel discussion and the relevant job search advice that you'll get. That I try to make sure that it's the most up to date as possible as it happens for that week. So I'm very excited about how that's going to all come out. Those episodes, since I do one every 2 or 3 weeks, they're going to appear at different times and it's not going to be consistent. So, there's my chance to win an Emmy. But all in all, those are going to be episodes that you'll be able to listen to for about an hour. So plan on breaking up if you're just going for a walk or if you're just working out for short periods of time or if you're just traveling from here to there. I know that's how people listen to podcasts mostly, but a lot of people do like the long form content. That's what we're shooting for. We're also having transcripts for each of the main interviews that we do during the show, not for the whole show. So I want to spend a little bit of time and explain to you what's going on here and there. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed the live streams that have been happening here. Hopefully you enjoyed the podcasts that have been appearing in your boxes lately on your podcast directories. And I want to thank you for joining me. I'm going to end it here. Look for me Wednesday on Job Seeker Nation with Jack Kelly. Thanks a lot. Peace in the Valley of Love. See you guys later.